Sunday morning, October 20th, 1985. Aboard the motor yacht Tasia 2 somewhere in the Catalina Channel. A few of us gathered in secret to scatter the ashes of Rock Hudson into the sea. The night before, we held a memorial service and party at the castle. There was Mexican food and mariachis. Oh, everyone was there. Elizabeth Taylor, Roddy McDowell, Carol Burnett, John Chuck, Susan St. James, Glenn Ford, Ricardo Montalban, Robert Wagner, Tab Hunter, Mark Christian. Among many star-studded reminiscences, I was asked to deliver Shakespeare's "Fear no more the heat of the sun." And I cried. I was Rock's cleaning man. I had bought a pair of slacks and a dark jacket for the occasion. I really had nothing to wear. I put my tapes on extra tight to make myself look younger, and of course I put on my wig to hide the tapes and the facelift scars. No one ever saw me without my wig. And don't forget Undine, my adorable Yorkie. What a sweet little doggy walkie. Undine. Undine. Undine is always with me. A week and a half later, on November 2nd, 1985, Mark Christian and Marvin Mitchelson held a press conference announcing they were suing the Hudson estate for $14 million for conspiracy to endanger Mark Christian's life. This is my deposition in that matter. It is a matter of public record. The names have not been changed. There are no innocent. I saw that he was ill. It became obvious that he was seriously ill. And I would say to Mark in the kitchen...
No, when you say Mark...
Oh, I am sorry. Mark Miller. I remember having... first of all, I remember having asked Mark Miller, has he been tested for AIDS? I can't tell you when this was, but I remember I asked it 2 or 3 different times over a period of months, always either in Mark Miller's office or at the kitchen table, because I talked a lot about it. We were concerned about him. And I can remember often nagging them, saying, you have got to make him, this doctor is a quack. He's not doing anything for Rock. Don't you see that? You've got to do something about it. He isn't getting better. He's getting worse. And this doctor, if he says... And he kept telling me, Mark Miller kept telling me they were doing all sorts of tests. He said they've been testing him for months and nothing is happening except he is getting worse. And I remember Rock could not eat. And that occasionally he would, he tried to eat. He would eat a bit sometimes. And then he would go upstairs and throw up. And then he would come back down the stairs and say, I lost it all.
Mr. Dobbs, has anybody promised you any money to testify in this case?
No.
Has anybody asked you to testify against Mark Christian in this case?
No. Quite the contrary. I really did not want to have to give a deposition because I felt I could do no good to anybody. I felt that my testimony might do harm to both sides. And I have always, whatever difficulties I have never had a disagreement with Mark Christian, but everyone else in the house I've had big disagreements with. But whatever happened, I always had affection for everyone in the house, and I really didn't want to do damage to anybody. And I even, when I first was told I might have to give a deposition, I thought maybe I could run away to Mexico or something until it's over. I really thought of it. But I expressed my concern to Mark Miller and to George Nader about this, and they immediately, they said, there is no, you have no obligation to anybody. All you have to do is tell the truth. And they have always, no one has ever suggested I say anything against Mark Christian or anyone. They knew always, it was never a secret that I was on Mark Christian's side in that matter of his not being told. I was very open about it. I was often in trouble in the house because of it. And I created a lot of problems because of it. I mean, but I did not hide it. I mean, people became angry with me about my expressing those sentiments, but I didn't hide it. But all they have said, all I have been told, is that my obligation is to tell the truth as I know it. And that no one has offered me any money to testify. The money that I got, you know that I got $30,000. This came from Rock himself. This, again, was Mark Miller suggested I be given money and had originally tried to get $100,000 for Mark Christian, for me, and 3 or 4 other people who were in the house. He had tried to get that, and the estate lawyer said that it could not be done, that it was totally illegal. But Mark Miller had tried to do that for us all. And then he had suggested to Wally Sheft, I think it would be a good idea if we got some money, if we got Rock to give some money to John and George and John Dobbs for having stuck with Rock all this time. And Wally said, I think that's fine. How much? Mark Miller said, $85,000 for John. And Wally said, how about $30,000 for John? And that's what we got. But Mark Miller got that. He arranged that. And I mean, the idea came from Mark Miller. And this was before there was ever any indication that there might be a lawsuit. Rock Hudson was still alive and signed my check. Otherwise, I mean, he didn't sign the check. He did not sign the check, as I remember, but he signed a statement saying that he was giving that amount, and it was given in the form of a bonus. But that is the only money that I have received, and it came before Rock died. So there was no indication that there might be, I mean, in no way can this be interpreted as it having bought us off.
And it has, in fact, not bought you off.
No! I have continued to express my opinion after. Well, I felt that I had, well, first of all, it hurt me to feel that I had worked in the house for several years, and I felt very much a part of the household. And I was obviously very much concerned over Rock's health, his failing health, and his welfare, and I felt hurt and betrayed that I had not been told that information. Also, since I cleaned the house, I did not... If I had known he had AIDS, I would have worn rubber gloves for cleaning the wash basin that he used, and I had not. But then once I went to my doctor, an expert in the field of AIDS, I went to him and had a rather long discussion with him about my situation, and he said, you have nothing to worry about. And I said, yes, but you know I often have small cuts on my hands, and I cleaned his sink, the sink into which he spat, cleaned his teeth, etc., etc. I did not wear gloves. For the toilet, I wore gloves for cleaning that, but not for the sink. And he said, John, you have nothing to worry about. That allayed my fears for myself. Don't know. They don't know exactly how much they will receive. It will be a percentage. This was before the lawsuit. It was because as Mark got the money for me having stuck, Rock was unbearable to be around the last months, maybe the last year. But the last many months of his life, he changed into an absolute ogre. He was rude to me. He was unpleasant. I couldn't stand to be around him. I would come into work some days almost in tears. And because of all and the way he treated, I thought the first 6 weeks or so, I asked Mark Miller one day, what does this man have against me? I have done nothing to him. And he said, but John, he is that way to all of us now. And I realized he was being nasty to all of us. And I did stay. I felt some sort of... My feelings toward Rock were very ambivalent. I cared for him deeply. And I also hated him, especially at this point. He was so difficult to be around. Mark Miller felt that those of us who had stuck by him through that period deserved some money. I was told that I would be given a certain amount of money so that I would have enough income to live on so that I could actively pursue an acting career full-time. This was because I was given to understand I had stuck with Rock. It was his money, and I had stuck with him to the end when I could have left at any time, and that I had provocation to leave. This also was before anyone had mentioned a lawsuit. So there is no reason, I believe, to think that my testimony has been bought. And I am trying to be, and have tried to be, as fair to Mark Christian as I am to the other side. And as honest. Having given that deposition, I was no use to either side. I visited my dear old grandmother in Texas in the nursing home just before she died. Of course, Undine was with me. My grandmother was really responsible for mothering me. She proudly introduced me to her roommate in the nursing home, another dying old lady, proclaiming, "This is my grandchild." And the other old lady said, "Well, she's mighty purty." I have not been bought. I have integrity. I have loved the good in my enemies. My enemies have not been people. My enemies have been money, power, sex, Hollywood stardom, beauty, youth,